Hey, hi guys, how you doing?
Good.
What's happening?
Hi.
I
What's
love
up?
that. I love that little lullaby, man. That little lullaby. I wanted to grab my guitar and just, strum along. I liked it.
I
I
mean,
wasn't sure if that hi, how you doing was to the audience or to us, so I was hesitant to answer.
yeah. It's the new TV show, the Brady Bunch, but like the pandemic version.
Yeah.
Uh, was it the Brady Bunch? It was the Brady Bunch with those squares, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um, so, quick introduction of everyone around the panel here. I've got Blake, which was on episode 70, and I've got Philip, which was on episode 63, and I got Paul, which hasn't participated yet on our usual type or like frame of episodes, but I did the same thing in French last week, which is pretty much like a pandemic special where I bring as many friends as possible around the table. I want to discuss not only the state of things, but the state of us. We're extremists, we're impulsive, like we're people that have. My wife will kindly say that we're passionate, but that's we're maybe a bit more than that. But let's start with Blake. Tell me just like a little maybe a quick summary of like your status in life, like wife, kids, whatever, and in terms of like your job, like where you're located, what's the status of the authorities right now in terms of your confinement, if there is any imposed confinement, and so on. So Blake, how you doing?
Sure. I'm good. So, yeah, I'm here in my one-bedroom apartment with my wife and our two cat babies, our two little fur babies that we have here that are tearing up the apartment. I think they're so happy that we're home that they're just ripping everything up, including our new rug that we just put down. I am in South Florida, so we are under lockdown, supposedly. But like any good Floridians, it doesn't seem like anybody's on lockdown here. Like you ever see those news articles, Florida man, fill in the blank. They're always so. I don't know what is with Floridians, but the streets are just as busy as they've always been. The only thing is that the stores seem more closed. But we are doing our best to quarantine. I actually spent the whole day today setting up my home office, um, trying to transition all of my clients to online. I have one person who I still meet with in person, but that's transitioning out this week and moving everything to online. My wife is working from home full time, so we are getting by. It was funny timing for this to happen, this to all go down. Was I actually quit last time I did the podcast with you? I was working for Recovery Unplugged. I quit my job about 6 weeks ago, working for Recovery Unplugged to start my own company. And then pretty much a week or two in, then this all starts going down. Luckily, I haven't been too affected. I've still seen a good number of clients, and we're just kind of coasting by.
And in terms of your job, so I guess right now you're still working almost full time. It's just that like finding new customers or finding new clients is a bigger challenge.
We are still getting referrals on a regular basis. We're still doing okay.
Okay,
It's actually all right because we are offering online coaching, essentially online recovery coaching, family coaching, um, life coaching. Between myself and my partner, we're doing it online right now. So there still seems to be a need. Honestly, more than ever, I think there's a need for it because people
sure.
need that increased support right now.
Yeah. Paul, what about you?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. I'm in Toronto, and I have a wife and two boys, and it's very much like Blake there. I'm a coach. My wife is a business coach. So we were talking about earlier about Zoom and kind of all the the people learning it and trying to get their heads around it and the etiquette and all that. Um, I'm using Zoom for the last 2 or so years, and so because we work from home, it hasn't really affected me. Our kids are home, so learning at home with them, uh, which is challenging. I mean, it's all of the strings and calls and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I guess just grateful plus that it hasn't really affected like clients sleeping or also getting so it really has not been an issue. And in terms of the lockdowns, probably similar to there in Quebec, only essential, doctor's appointments, groceries, and only like one person. It's not a family outing. They want us just to even limit your medical appointments as little as possible. And you can walk your dog or just, go for a bike. So, and they're actually they started this yesterday. They're giving, and they've done this already. They're giving people on the spot tickets, like 750 tickets. They're not adhering to the 6-foot rule, the 2-meter rule, or if they find people like asking. I was walking, I saw people having a picnic in the park, and like 2 different families or a couple of different families. So they're actually they're cracking down on it. But in terms of us, it's again, I'm just grateful that it hasn't really affected us that much.
How old are the kids?
They're 10 and 12.
Okay, so they can keep themselves busy at that age.
Yeah, they're fairly independent. So again, it's not like I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, which would require constant supervision. So it's like, okay, it's going to happen when they're like a bit older.
Yeah. As for you, Philip?
Yeah. So my internet's been a little spotty, so you guys just wave your hand if you start losing me, so I don't continue to keep going. But for me here in Los Angeles, it's been, I'm a television producer, so our industry has kind of been completely flipped upside down. 85% of our industry kind of shut down. All the production stopped. Everything had to kind of get postponed. I'm very fortunate that I'm actually currently on with a production company. So for us, we've been trying to come up with ideas for new shows and what does this mean and how do we move forward. And I also have I do personal development coaching and executive coaching on the side. So I had coaching calls today. Still working with people and so I mean it was interesting because I was actually just in Florida, Blake. My family was down there doing vacation. My parents just bought a place down there, and
nice. Where?
They're in Ocala.
Okay.
So as soon as I got back, I had this moment where I was like, I've got this 2-bedroom place. I'm using this guest bedroom. No one ever comes to visit. I'm turning this thing into an office. So literally 2 days before everything went in and we were like locked down at home, I had turned my entire my guest bedroom into a home office. So the timing was good for me. We've been locked down for, I feel like probably 2 or 3 weeks now. And I hate to admit it, but there's a part of me, and I think it's probably the alcoholic in me, that loves the chaos. I kind of love, like, obviously I don't, right? And like, I sound insensitive, right? Like, obviously I feel terrible for people that are getting sick and people that are passing away. And I don't mean to sound insensitive in that. I completely understand the gravity of the situation. But from me, and coming from that mindset of like, I used to love when shit was crazy.
Yeah.
I used to thrive in the chaos. And it was something that recovery helped me get my grips on. But there is a part of me that like everything from like looking out the window and wanting to point my finger, oh, you shouldn't be running. And then I'm out there running at 6:30 in the morning. Like I'm a crazy person. Like I thrive in these type of situations. So it's been interesting to say the least.
I know exactly what you mean in terms of the almost the V for Vendetta thing, like where you see, like you see the old system going down and you see those political and powers kind of pulling their strings in there. You're like, oh my God, this is pretty much like no one is, like no one can do, no money can actually, like buy, like there are privileges for sure you can get, but like there's no money that can buy you be having to be confined. And there's, like we're pretty much leveled down to stuck in our fucking place, like the so I've got a wife. I've been married for 10 years. We've got a nice house. I work in technology and sales and technology, so I'm not I'm not affected. I work for a vendor in technology, which is a worldwide vendor. Is their headquarters is located in Texas. They have not been hit yet in terms of the pandemic peaks, let's say that way.
Mm-hmm.
And most of I was listening to Rogan. There was a microbiologist, which is from Dallas, saying it's going to hit them hard because they're not listening, as a bit like
Mhm.
you're describing, Blake. In terms of Floridians, like not listening to the warnings of it. That being said, I'm blessed that I still have a job. My wife too. My wife works for a local SMBs, which allows the telework from home, and it works fine. That being said, we've got a 4-year-old, which has that has special needs. He's an autistic child. He's a fantastic child, but there's no go do a puzzle while dad is on a phone call.
Mhm.
That's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
So we're on our what, Paul, 5th week?
I would say 5. Yeah, 5 sounds right.
Yeah. So we're
5 or
pretty
6.
much at our 5th.
Wow, you guys
Wait,
went that early.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they were smart about it. Canadians are much smarter than Americans. They actually quarantined before it got really bad.
Exactly.
Wow. See, it's crazy. So I'm originally from Detroit. So I've been in Los Angeles now for over a decade. But Detroit is one of the cities that's been getting hit really, really bad. And there was tons of people that were up in arms about, why didn't, it's always easy after the fact to say, why didn't you quarantine earlier, or when is the right time? But then the truth is, even days before quarantines were coming out, there were people that were like, this is such a joke. Like, what is this? Like, don't overreact. We have the economy. And it's like, I'm not trying to alleviate responsibility of anyone. There's a reason I didn't get into politics. It's because I didn't want those type of decisions to be hanging over my head.
Mm-hmm.
But it is not an easy decision. I mean, look at how much we yell at people on a Monday after a football game on the pass they throw. And now there's just people that are having to make decisions about human lives and what, it's such a crazy.
You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I mean, there's
Totally.
there's no right answer.
The thing is that most of the US based podcasts that I listen to, they're still asking the question, is the juice worth the squeeze? Which we know what the squeeze is, and we know what the juice is.
Yeah.
So,
it's one of those things. It only hits you when it hits you. And that's the thing. And that's the unfortunate thing. But I mean, we know that all the time, right? Like, I didn't care about recovery until I was a person in it. You don't care about you don't care about the illness. Because I hate to say it, but you don't until your mom has it, until someone close to you hits, and then it becomes real. And it's like, and that's the hard thing, is there's various people that are at various swings of this thing in terms of how much it's impacted their lives. Like, I feel guilty at times that like it really hasn't impacted me a ton. I work from home and whatever now, but there's people out there that are really, really in bad spots,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think we're at our 4th weeks, Paul, because 2 weeks after the quarantine, we reached out to a nanny that we have that is just specialized, and she's phenomenal. She was awesome with our child, and we offered her. We said, well, we've been pretty much in lockdown in our houses for the past 2 weeks. We're asking you kindly, if, because she can't go to school, right? She's a teacher for kids, for young kids, and said, well, what we're offering is that you come in between 8:30 and 12, so that my wife and I can actually have at least full half days that we give to our employers. And she, thank God she accepted. She said, all right, I'm going to be there next Monday. And so she's hitting her 2nd week, which means that we're on our 4th week of quarantine. And that being said, it was the first last Saturday, that my dad actually asked me not to come to his place. Every Saturday morning I go to it with my son. My father is 70, and he said, I'm going to pass this week. There are a lot of warnings being told about, elders and
Elders.
and like being careful about like if like their health is not top. My father is top notch, but like I don't want to take any chances. And yeah, like the my mother died 3-4 weeks ago. So it was just right in the middle of it. So it was a
Oh wow.
COVID quarantined funeral where you have
Yeah.
those. So my father is 70, so his older brother, which is 76, came in, was like, fuck, stay home, like you don't have to, like to do that. The funeral place actually told us to limit the people, the number of guests. So like it was like the elbow thing, like, and then like you got one of those uncles like just picking you up and say, well, fucking hug me, like it's not that it's not the cold that's gonna stop me from hugging you. And it's and again, like it wasn't about me, it was about these folks. And my dad trying to mourn is the loss of his wife, which like, by the way, it was a long-term thing. Like it took 2 years for her, like she was not old, she was 66, 67, but like there's a long history of kind of sickness in my family. There's the muscular dystrophia. My brother has it, my sister had it, and my mom had it. And so because of a like a not a botched operation, but like kind of, she shouldn't have got that medical intervention, which is major. But in their case, it just killed her. Like 2 years later, she died. And
really sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah.
Really sorry
well,
to hear that.
Awful.
and like for me right now, it's just caring and making sure that my dad's okay and that my brother's okay too. But it's going through that funeral moment, which was just awful. Like you got the funeral home calling because like the government gave new instructions. Okay, not more than 25 people. Well, and then she called back and say, well, we're gonna keep it scheduled, but like it shouldn't be more than a few people being there at the same time. And though my father wanted to have like a buffet with the sandwiches and stuff, that got scratched off.
Yeah.
Like labeling water bottles, it was just fucking bad. Like and too bad.
Last thing you want to worry about when you're trying to mourn your mother and is trying to figure out what is more likely to spread the virus. It's just the last thing you want to think about.
Just a fucking nightmare. And so,
and I was thinking about that, about the amount of people that, there's people are dealing with stuff all the time, right? Like a lot of us, we're in recovery, we're in coaching. We understand that there's always these ups and downs. It's just very rarely that it's happening to everyone at the same time.
Yeah,
right.
True.
And it's like, but there are so many people that like have been in it. It's so easy for everyone to feel like, oh, everyone is in it. It's this new thing. And it was all life was perfect before this, but it was like, there's a lot of people that are dealing with sickness, that have been sick for a while, that were dealing with layoffs before this. People that were getting ready to go back to jobs, and then this hit. And it's like, there's so many different ways that you could have been impacted by this thing.
We're all dealing with it just at different degrees of intensity. And some people are getting hit a lot harder and not even being touched by the disease itself or the virus itself, but their lives have just been turned upside down. And
it's okay too. Like, it's okay, like to not, like if Corona's not the number one thing on your checkoff list of crazy stuff happening to you, like then deal with what's most important. Like, you don't need to feel guilty if someone's listening and it's like they're in the middle of something and they're like could care less about Corona. Like, you got to handle what you got to handle, right?
And
like,
we stopped watching the news here. Like we like there's kind of a stop the media. Like there's some, like you have a hard time wrapping your head around what's true and what's not, and what's like what's hype and what's like sensationalism. Like
man.
And so we kind of, just before I came down, like it was locked on one of those 24 hours information channel, and it said we have to stop that. Like, so during the weekends there's almost zero new. We don't know. By the way, everyone, like especially Blake and Philip, this Sunday we got informed by our government, I think Paul is the same, that our lockdown has been confirmed to be pushed to May 3rd. So we already know now that we're stuck for all of April in our houses. Um, yeah.
Gotcha. I feel like I'm not paying attention because in my brain it's like July. Like I
Yeah.
feel like I'm like in that mindset of just kind of preparing for that. Like
Mhm.
I went, so I'm in Los Angeles. We don't have like a ton of.
Oh, you're muted, Phil.
Oh, you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had a phone call that was coming in. Jeez, I'm so popular in my fish tank, guys. But so I had, so we're in Los Angeles where we don't have a ton of space, right? So I don't have like a, a nice outdoor patio space, blah, 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 to go, get away from people. But I love to smoke cigars still, right? Like the one vice I have. So I actually I took my car from my parking space in the back, moved it to the street, and I bought patio furniture on Amazon and I had it delivered and I turned my parking spot into like a smoking lounge. And I'm like, it's like, it goes car, car, car. Phil hanging out on his iPad smoking a cigar. Car, car, car. And everyone comes out and
that's the most alcoholic thing I've ever heard in my life.
You know what I'm saying? It's like you give me lemons and I'm gonna make shitty lemonade. Like that's what
I get it.
Because I'm like, I know I'm gonna be out. I feel like we're gonna be in this for a minute, and I was like, I want to at least be able to sit outside and enjoy the California sun.
For sure, for sure. In terms of you all of you three are coaches, and I'm gonna start with you, Paul. Do you have newcomers in terms of the people that you're talking to, or people that don't have much time in recovery, and how did it change your interaction, both in terms of your interactions with them, but as well as like their own interaction with the outside world? And I mean by that, like we before starting the recording, I was asking, well, first Blake and Paul about like those online meetings and the difference, because there is for me at least, like there's major difference in terms of the impacts it creates inside of me when I attend those Zoom online meetings. Like, and I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm just saying that like there's a lot of work to go. Let's say it that way. Like I think like in terms of organization, like there's they have like a lot of recuperation to do. Like they're late at the game. They've been rushed. They were good enough to at least have something organized within almost like a week and a half. We had almost meetings at every hour of the day on all of the fraternities, like the CA, the NA, the AA. But I attended a few, and some are really, really rough in terms of like the organization of it. So I need to ask you, Paul, like what have you heard yet in terms of your own customer, your own clients?
Yeah, that's a good question. I had someone call me or just referred to me from her sister, someone who's been struggling, and the she said, well, what about meetings? And I said, well, unless you want to do online, which is totally available, that you're kind of out of luck there, unfortunately. And it was the first time this has come up where it's like meetings aren't, like face-to-face meetings isn't an option, right? And so you have someone who's already, what it's like, you're already so isolated and you're just afraid. And most people, when they're afraid to darken the door step of those church basements or whatever it is already, as it is already. And now when that option is taken, so it's taken off the table, it's like, okay, well, I said, well, what we can do is we can do a check-in. And so every day she's been texting me, just checking in, hey, I'm doing this. And I said, okay, let's just kind of do this for a little bit, and we can talk on the side and we can do that kind of stuff. And she hasn't become a client, but it's just one of the things I've noticed. I've had a couple of them since, where, because I don't necessarily work with people who are just right in the middle of that jam, right? Like maybe after, when the heat's kind of off, like, there are programs for a reason, and yeah. I'm not one of them. So I get them set up first before then we can start doing our kind of work together and up level their stuff. But right now it's been a challenge because that's not available. I mean, even if it's not 12-step, I mean, even, Refuge Recovery and SMART, they're all group in-person based, models. So it has been interesting having these conversations, because that is, and people are like, I really want to try. I'm like, you can online. So I think the in-person thing, I think, is really helpful, because at least there's that energy in a room. But now we're missing that. And as we said, like, it's great. On one hand, it's great that we have everyone learning to get online. And at the other end of the spectrum is, we're getting all these people trying to learn how to get online.
Exactly.
And it's kind of, as you were saying, it's a bit of a disaster. It's, people are trying, but there's that Zoom etiquette you were talking about. It's people not understanding it. And so it's going to be a time of transition for everyone, trying to figure out not only how to run a meeting in that space, but also for people themselves. They're used to, especially people who've been in the rooms for like 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
They have their spot, and they have this, and they have their routine. Their routine is shot to hell now.
Exactly.
And they don't know what to make of this Zoom thing, and the tech, and maybe the millennials are like, all right, this is my speed. And it just throws everything off. So I wonder too about just also the emotional part when someone's off of their routine like that, to even the old mid-timers, old time, whatever it is, this is part of their like routine. And what the coronavirus has done is thrown everyone off the routine.
Yep.
Right. And you're talking about your son who's autistic. I mean, routine is like, without routine, it's bedlam, right? So I think that's been one of the biggest things about the COVID is, alcoholic or addict or not, everyone's routine is just way off, and it's causing stress.
Yeah.
And it's freaking people out, and people are overeating and sleeping all day, or going from their daytime pajamas to their nighttime pajamas. So it makes sense that for people struggling with alcoholism or addiction, that it's even up leveled more, because now we've taken a big chunk of that recovery piece away for now.
Yeah.
And trying to get them. So with my clients, I try to just work with them a little bit more close and tight, and see if we can just even get on a Zoom or a phone call, just to have that connection, that they have a touchstone. So that's what I've been observing.
And I'm gonna ask the same question to you, Blake. But have you guys felt a difference in terms of, like I used to, if I wouldn't attend 5 meetings a week, but like if I attended one, I knew that my batteries would be refilled. Like so I would attend a meeting and go, like finish the meeting and say, okay, I'm good. Like I'm recharged. I don't know how, like some would call it energy, some whatever it is, like the spirit of the place recharges my batteries. I haven't I haven't spoken many words there. I've done a few hugs. I may have talked or like said hi to a few people, but just listening to someone sharing, sitting amongst other addicts, and after an hour or so, I'd be refilled. I'll be just recharged.
I mean, I've probably attended more meetings now that they're Zoom based, which is a little weird. I've been getting out and going more, and some of my, like I actually go to a lot of men's stags, so men only meetings, and so those have been great, and still connecting with those guys is awesome. I have one meeting I go to that's co-ed. And it's funny because like when I go to this co-ed meeting, it's a big meeting. I walk in, I get my seat, I listen, and then I leave. On Skype, I'm right in the face of every female that is in that thing. And it's funny because like I catch myself drifting and being like, oh man, I need to like not be in the chat. There's been times where I want to be like, hey, who are you? How long you been? I'm like, oh man, this is dangerous. Like this is bad news. But the crazy thing is I haven't done anything, but I see it happening. And it's like, that's been one thing. I've been in certain meetings where they've been like, hey, we've disabled the chat feature because it's such a distraction. Whereas I've seen other meetings where it's almost a game I play where I look at the people and I'm watching their face and I'm like, I think he's talking to her and she's talking to them. Like you can see the people that are in there.
Absolutely.
And like, there's, and So that's been a little bit like, obviously that's something that's just not happening in a normal meeting.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, the flirting and all that stuff. But I will say, you know, the thing that I feel really grateful for now, I don't actually coach recovery. So I actually do more business coaching and executive coaching. So I don't really have a lot of like recovery based clients. But the thing that I'm so grateful to recovery for is I feel like I've been preparing for this for the last 12 years. You know, I feel like the emotional resilience that I have built up because of learning and because of the tools that I've been given in recovery, like this has been such a, I don't want to say non-issue, but it's like, I'm just rolling with punches because I've learned how to do that. I've ridden so many waves. I've watched myself struggle. I've watched others struggle. You learn and you pick up that I feel like I feel bad for the people that don't have our community. It's who I feel the worst for, is people that don't have the meeting. You know, like I know where to go when I'm getting froggy. You know, I know where to go. And I'm very grateful for that. So Blake, what's kind of been your experience?
Well, so I'm going to start off with a couple negatives first. There's a couple things that I can't stand about the Zoom meetings. And because there is ways that you can use it to make it work. You can literally raise your hand on a Zoom meeting. Like you can raise your hand. And then I'm always the guy who gets so OCD who's like, hey, can everybody mute their mic when they're not talking? Can you mute your mic? Like I'm that guy who just keeps chiming in over and over again. Hey, mute your mic, please. So that does make me crazy. I've had trouble focusing more too. At home, at the same time I'm looking at my phone. There's always guys in every meeting that I go to, and I go to mostly just men's meetings too. There's always like the one or two old timers who they grill me when I pick up my phone. So I know, like I don't pick up my phone anymore in a meeting. But now, I have to really pay attention and really focus with it. And it is a little bit difficult. I have found that intherooms.com is the best meeting platform outside of all of our home groups that have moved to Zoom, because they do have a structure. There is a chairperson, and they allow people to come into the box to talk. So I do find that to be pretty good. The other thing that I would say,
like it's called intherooms.com.
In the Rooms.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know about them.
They've been around for a while too. So this didn't just start like 2 weeks ago. This has been like at least a decade.
I think 2011 is where.
Was it that only that? Yeah. So yeah, about a decade. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's actually really good. The meetings are very established, that people seem to know each other. There's a way to reach out to everybody on there, but there's not a chat while the meeting's going. So it is different. The only other issue right now with meetings, honestly, is that everybody's talking about coronavirus every single meeting. So it's getting away a little bit from the message for me, which I like to stick in that solution. I like to focus on that stuff. My sobriety is not in jeopardy by any means. I don't feel like using. I have been going to more meetings. With the original question, though, is how is it affecting clients, especially early on? It's affecting them hard. I think it's easier to stay sober right now once you already are sober than getting sober right now. But there is still help out there. Most treatment centers are still open right now, so you could still go and get treatment, go and get care. My job as a coach right now is really to just ramp up, like Paul said, ramp up the amount of attention that we're giving our clients. So most of my clients, I'm FaceTiming in the morning, FaceTiming at night. I got one guy I text every single morning and say, give me your gratitude list. Just stuff to keep them in a positive focus, on a positive track, and holding them accountable right now.
I think the tough thing is, and the dangerous thing, right, with the way, not just how our brains work as alcoholics, but just in general, is the idea of, it feels like so many people have hit a big, massive, imaginary pause button on life. As if life is, this is not the life that I know. So we'll just ride this thing out. And if I need to make a change later on, I will. And it's like, we have to remind ourselves, and then if, people that are newcomers, like, this is still your life. This is still our life. And it's like, I don't think there's ever a perfect or a terrible time to get your shit together, right? Like, it's
my God.
Get it together. Like, if it don't punt, don't wait. Oh, I'll start working out in January. Nah, start working out now. I'll start doing that. No, it doesn't matter. Those are all just excuses. But this is a big excuse a lot of people can latch on to. And I think that's a difficult thing for newcomers. And then the difficult time of like not necessarily wanting to yell at a newcomer and be like, get your shit together. Although sometimes that's the type of newcomer I was, that I needed to hear. But
Yeah.
And it's funny that you talk about the training. I've never trained that hard in my life. Like this is my way of, like kind of exhaling. Like like the exhale is just running like a madman, and like with my son in the like in the kind of the jogger, the stroller, and like so it is to just physically spend energy. The stress is obviously, like I said, like the headquarter for the firm for which I work, like has not been hit yet. So every communication right now doesn't reflect the reality of what's coming. Like so there's empathy, and they're super sweet and kind about it, but you feel that there's like a, all right, guys, like a Zoom is great, like enjoy, like calling out to your customers and asking them what they need. It's like, well, if I want to have some empathy about it, like I have to be quite careful about, like who I'm calling, what I'm asking him, what, like the as you said, as everyone said, like our routines got pretty much, blown away. So as we're used to doing, for example, like there are, like sales methodologies like the challenger sales, like this is not a good time right now to actually challenge your customer. Like it is a good time to relationship based sell, like like embrace how is he doing, and really that's all I'm caring about right now, which is like everyone around me. How are you doing? How are you holding up? Because, like those that have young kids right now, and or those that have, like parents that they need to care for and or worry for. Those are the ones that, like I'm like I think about the most. And at the same time, as just before we started recording, the fact that you told me about intherooms.com, which is fantastic, like it's going to be in the description of the episode, just for the fact that, like the ones right now that are pulling the best out of this situation are the ones that were doing it prior to that situation. Because right now, as the regional authorities of those meetings don't get involved, as I was telling Paul and Blake before recording, like we saw a situation where people would attend meetings shirtless. Like, so to your point, Philip, like some ladies got triggered by that for good reason. Like, and whatever the backstory of her trigger is, like there will need to be some authority to just say, guys, like as you said, like we stop the chat, like it's not here, like it's not a flirty room, it's actually a meeting room. And like there are as people with, like if you're not dressed, not for a dress code, but like if you're not dressed properly, we're gonna have to kick you out. And I remember a therapist telling me, because I was actually telling her that people had no class. That was my snobby side, my little fancy side. But like she was like, no one here in that room comes from a good place, meaning that like we were all at the bottom of the fucking barrel, fucking everyone we could, lying to everyone we could, stealing from everyone we could, and then we came back, like and so like if there are some pieces of that still in the people that you see around you, like snow, like like so. I mean,
I always think change sort of brings out people's character defects. We're in the uncomfortability zone, and people cope with uncomfortability by reverting back to a lot of their character defects oftentimes. So it's really, we have to be compassionate and empathetic and understanding, okay, they're going through their change process. It may not look like ours, but let their defects run their course. Hopefully their sponsor will call them out on it, and they'll get better. But I'm definitely seeing some people starting to act strange. Even my sponsee is starting to act a little strange. I'm like, dude, he's not washing his hands. He's not showering. I'm like, bro, you got to get back to basics, man. What are you doing?
Yeah.
He's like trying to be that rebel and exert his control over the situation and his way of exerting control is like, I'm not going to shower. I'll show you, government. And you're like, no, you stink, bro.
That's crazy. That is a funny thing though, man. Like the control, I'm a pretty, and I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that we're all probably pretty structured guys in the way that we, keep our lives and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I've always kind of said, I'm one of the, I try to wake up, 5:30, 5:45 every day. And the people that are like, why do you do it? Like when you don't have to be work till later. And it's like, cause I dictate my schedule. Like I do. I don't allow what I have going on to. I'm not like, I want to, and that's part of my love of control and my love of discipline. I'm a cop's kid. And so like, I fall into that idea of, discipline and wanting to do things. But I think that that's what we all have to do is find the stuff that works for us. And, for me, it's like having my routine and like not letting it get too much, get impacted too much. Now I'm also 100% appreciative of understanding that like a single dude with no kids there's a much different impact on my life than it is for some of my, even friends or coworkers or clients that have kids and a wife. And it's like, all of a sudden you add an extra 45 hours with your significant other when you're normally averaging about maybe 10 to 12. Like it's normal for, I hate to say normal for shit to hit the fan, but there's normal for there to be some growing pains.
For sure.
In that,
which is the, like it's pretty much like the cohabitation or like the co-living of two stresses, but that have different, like the stress that my wife goes through is not necessarily not incompatible, but like it's different. Like so by the time that we're at dinner, like I've like it's funny because today I've asked her, I don't know, maybe 100 times, what's up? Like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah. And then stop asking me. And I'm like, I know you enough that, like if I'm asking you and whatever you answer, if it's not what's up, like what really is going on, I know, like there's something, like you're not doing okay, like just tell me. And she was like, fucking stress,
Yeah.
Just like, like just adding up on, like the news that fell yesterday that we got another 4 weeks. And then, like the fact that she works for, like a mid-sized company that, like God knows, like, and someone had the statistics that in Quebec, it's 99% of companies are mid-sized companies, like 99%, like we're not fucking around here. Every company is an SMB and all size related. When I talk to my counterparts in the US, they would be described as micro companies for the US. So not even SMBs; they're super small companies to the ratio of what a SMB is in your part of the territory. So that being said, like it was like kind of an accumulation of all kinds of stresses, but those accumulations are the kind of the importance of each is different on my end than it is on her end. And, like, as you said, Phil, like it's kind of, like trying to find a way to find this to mix and match and to, okay, like, so like I said, like we have half days that we're completely free of, like working 100% to, and so we put our son to sleep. So he wakes up between 2 and 3. And then by 3 o'clock, I know that I have, and I told my manager that I have, like I can pretty much, like stop my day at 3. And so I wake up, like I wake up, but my son wakes up and I just pretty much leave the house to go running, to go play outside or whatever, and find ways for her to finish our day so that she gives a full work day to her own employer. Because as I said, like their situation is more precarious. They've let go a few people in the past few weeks, and it's a different situation for her. Like and it is as you said, like it's more time spent with your significant other. It is more time figuring that shit out. Like the like she yesterday she was telling me, I miss putting makeup on. I miss the fucking traffic. Like, and I get
she can still put makeup on.
Oh no, she does. But like she was like, I miss, like I miss putting suits to meet with customers and shaking hands, and like the contact, especially in sales. Like it's all based on meeting with people, closing in on people, and she was like, I miss, and I get it. Like being stuck in your car is a pain in the ass, but at the same time, some are times of meditation, thinking. Like that there is. It's a moment that you can make precious to your own, like in terms of your schedule. Like we spend maybe an hour back and forth in our car stuck in traffic, and if you make the best of it, those are precious times in your schedule. You just think and like and inventorize your life, pretty much like, okay, I'm good, like, and then you get off the car, you get home or you get to the office, and you can pretty much like you've resetted that stress switch or whatever, instead of just pulling your hair and going crazy, which happens sometimes. But like there is, I know, and so it's interesting to see that like the I haven't found yet something that fills me on online meetings, which proves me that, for me, it's kind of my own hypothesis, that the contact coming from a human being close, even if it's a complete stranger, especially in a meeting room, there's nothing yet that equates that. Like there's nothing that comes close to that. And so Zoom meetings are great. Yeah,
I can relate to that a little bit. Of I've kind of joked that I talk to my family, I talk to we stay connected to the people that we have pre-existing deep relationships with. And then I've gone back and I've checked in with some of my friends I haven't seen or don't talk to as much from high school and whatnot. But like, I miss the stupid 2-minute conversation that I have with a dude who I only see at the gym. He's like a gym buddy, and it's like a completely BS relationship. But like, it's hey bro, what are you lifting? Oh, cool. I'm gonna drink water now. Like, but it's like you miss those the pointless, the really meaningless, pointless things that make you feel a part of community. But I think there is an element of like trying to figure out how do you manufacture that? Like, is there someone that do you message people before or after a meeting and say, hey, does anyone have a little bit? So can somebody check in with me after? Hey, do you want to jump off into a side room and go have another conversation? I think that there's the possibilities are there for us to be able to find new ways that are going to make it work for us. And I think it's brand new, and we're gonna find out what that ratio is. It's just it's going to take some people longer to get there than others.
But Phil, to your point, I was thinking about this. Like I've definitely in the past 15 years I've cried at meetings, but I have yet to see a situation where I'm going to be crying at a Zoom meeting.
It's only been a month.
It's only been a month, baby.
Well, no, I know, but do you know what I'm saying? Where like sometimes someone will share, and you just like get that it's about, there's something about the energy of it. Like
you've got 3 coaches, and one of us is a producer. We will make you cry by the end of this Skype.
Even if it's fake crying, Phil is going to make me.
we will get like I guess I have a different impact a little bit, because I've been using Skype and Zoom for over a decade.
Yeah.
To cast shows. I've cast shows all over the country, people in the US, all over. So I'm so used to this. And then doing like making online content and motivational content, like I'm so used to it's just me and a camera and not needing that, not having the room. That like there is an element of where I don't even notice, it doesn't feel different.
Yeah, I sort of feel that maybe we are all, including myself, is making too big of a deal of this. That these changes are happening. We've all been trained. And Philip, what you said before was beautiful about, I've been training for this for 12 years. You're so right that we have been training for this because we have been trained to adapt to change. That's what addiction and recovery is we need to become resilient. We need to accept the situation for what it is and move forward with a solution. So I do think that there are plenty of options out there for people to get help, for people to go to meetings, for people to connect. Technology has been ready for this moment for 10 years. So we are fine, but it's us going, I just wish I could hug this person, or it's us missing what the past was instead of staying in the present and staying solution focused.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because I was going to say something similar. Instead of lamenting what we are missing, switching the focus on what do we have and what can we gain from this, rather than I miss this, I wish I would. It's like you've all said in different ways, like it's a perfect opportunity to switch things up, prioritize. It reminds me of a story many years ago. I was on a site, and it was for people. It matched sponsors, but electronic. It's kind of cool because I already had sponsees, and I met a guy, and his name was Bill W, and he was a salesman traveling, and he 25 years my senior, and he said, "Listen, I travel all the time. Do you mind sponsoring me?" I said, "Sure." And we were going through it, and it was time to, he had done his inventory, next step. And I was kind of like, I reached to my sponsor and I said, this guy knew a flip phone. This is how my sponsor was. And I said, do you think it's okay for him to share his stuff? But I said, we also do that Skype thing. We do a Skype thing. And he goes, what is that? I said, well, it's like a video. And he goes, oh, you see the other man's eyes. And I said, yeah. He goes, go ahead, there's something about that connection. You can see, and it's not to say there's not any changes, and a lot of beautiful things happen on the film. His question really was about, is there a connection? And when I said, yeah, there is, he goes, then we did it. It was awesome. At one point I said, I'd love to be a hugger.
Am I the only one that have a hard time hearing Paul? Yeah.
Oh,
I am also.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So it was really bad, but I was like, it must be me because Alex and Blake seem to be
we're good.
Yeah.
So you can cast
exactly what I was thinking.
You can cast two great comedians from Blake and I. I was like, guys, you guys are great.
We had eye contact the whole time.
I'm nodding
now.
Yeah.
No, it seems to be is someone playing in online games right now, Paul?
No,
no,
everyone's asleep. Everyone's asleep at my house.
Yeah,
okay,
so
you made a good point.
But I can't even remember what I said.
No. But one thing for sure that I caught from what you were saying, and like if it may have been sound scrambled, but there's two things that and you guys, thank you for like and I started with the fucking blessings first. Like there was a lot of good online meetings. It's just that I'm challenging the fact that there needs to be more organized. But I'm not lamenting here, Blake.
There's no question they're annoying. They are annoying. There's annoying people because there's so many more people all over the world in them. So we're just dealing with more annoying. But go ahead. Sorry.
No.
Annoying people never made me not go to the bar. I still went to the bar. Didn't matter how many annoying people there were. So
mic drop. Yep.
Pulled out the old sponsors.
So what Paul said is interesting, and what I caught for sure is two things. The first one is that we still do call our sponsor and get the full emotional and spiritual contact that we need from our sponsor conversation. That's the first thing for sure. 100%. And the second thing from what I caught was the fact that this your own sponsor, Paul, was asking you, can you see their eyes, right? And that, for me, is something that I probably haven't paid enough attention about, like where like you need to find that contact. It may be camera location, it may be a lot of things, but for sure, when like I do a step meeting with a whole friend of mine, and when we do it, we're 2 or 3 at most, or 4, but it's a small, almost intimate, non-recording, just like chatting. And like I said, like I've never took out the step book, because like we end up just relieving pressure on that conversation. Like say, how you doing, what's your week was, and like pretty much like the relieving the tension. And you see there, I feel the energy, the energy going back and forth between the two of us. When we're 78 in a Zoom meeting, it's a much more challenging process in trying to get that exchange or that closure.
One thing I've in this is probably very simple for anyone that uses Zoom a lot, but because somebody mentioned it in a meeting, and it blew my mind, because it's so natural for me to know that there's a speaker view and then there's a grid view, right? Like there's both views. And so I didn't even think like to ever mention that. And then someone got in a meeting and they were like, oh my God, I'm so glad that somebody told me about the speaker view. So now I only watch the meetings in speaker view. And it was like, there was things that I took for granted, but I think I'm saying it because it's worth to say for anyone that doesn't know. If you didn't know that, like, go to speaker view. And now your 78 person meeting just became you and that person for the moment. Like this is 4 people. I've got all of us up. Also, I'm conceited and I stare at myself half the damn time when I'm talking and when I'm listening. But if it's 78 people, I go speaker view, and I just try to really lock in on whoever it is that's talking. Now where that gap between 4 people and 78 is, I don't know for me.
Yeah. In terms of the LA region, have they all turned around in terms of getting the equivalent out in online meetings? Like for anyone that would be looking for a meeting as we speak right now, is he available? Is he able to pretty much attend a virtual meeting almost on a daily basis?
Yeah, it was massive, and it was immediate. It was massive and immediate. I mean, I had multiple people from, and now given, I guess it also, is based on the prerequisite that you were involved in a community, right? But like I had multiple people reaching out and like, hey, here's this meeting, this meeting moved online. Here's the massive meeting. I think the biggest thing that I know that some meetings have been talking about are like whether to go public or not. Because there have been some meetings that I found out that some people haven't, there's meetings out there that aren't open yet.
Yeah.
That are, hey, we kept it to the people that normally come to this meeting. We include that. There's that. But then, there's also, I could probably sit here for 9 hours a day, going from meeting to meeting to meeting, staying in LA, going all over. That's been the one thing I know a lot of our guys have. There's been moments where there's been dudes that have, lived in LA is such a transient place. So there's been guys that used to come to the meeting, my home group for years and years and years, moved back to Toronto or moved to Chicago or moved to Colorado. And now they're coming back to the meetings. And so there has been, in those guys, it's crazy because every time they come in, it's like they're lit up because they're like, it's bringing back, man, I remember, it's good to see you guys. And,
Wow.
So I think that it's like anything, man. There's positives about it if you find them. There's negatives if you want to find them.
But it's Phil, you bring a great point. Like it's a great occasion to actually reach out and see if there are either regions that don't have meetings yet, like or like reaching out in other places which are maybe hit harder, and like they have a harder time putting those in place, and inviting them to your own, like locally, and say, hey, like we have that that's available, and especially for the French culture, like I've seen a lot of people from France actually telling us, like, thank God that you guys have such an exhaustive list of meetings available in French, because we like we attend your meetings, because right now we're being hit hard and there's not
Wow.
as much meetings online in French that they are in Quebec right now. So I've seen that a few times. So
Yeah, that's really cool. I've wanted to go and check out other meetings. I have to say it out loud so that I condemn myself. I haven't done it yet. There was that crazy part of me that wanted to jump into a women's meeting, change my name, and don't turn my video on, but I didn't do it.
That's like old school AOL chat room stuff. I used to do it like when I was a kid in AOL chat room for 10.
ASL.
Yeah.
Remember ASL? Age, sex, location?
Of course.
Everyone was 18 from some exotic place.
I had a girlfriend on AOL that turned out to be it was definitely a dude.
Yeah, it was me, Blake. I'm back. Remember?
Finally, Katie, nice to see you.
And as for you, Blake, as Florida, like ramped up on the online meeting community.
Yeah, so it depends on the meeting you're going to. So my home group, which is crazy, is still meeting outside where they're complying with the 6 feet apart rule. We're doing the best that we can. It's dwindled down now. I haven't been going though, because I just feel like it's just not the right thing to do, to gather together like that. But they are still doing it, but there are a lot of meetings that have moved online. The meetings have really ramped up. I'm actually enjoying getting away from the Florida meetings and moving online to some meetings I've never been a part of. The intherooms.com or some of these meetings that I'm just finding, if you just Google online AA meetings or online AA support, COVID-19, you can find this stuff. And it's pretty cool to actually see, to talk to somebody, listen to somebody share in Australia, or somebody share in Ireland or Russia, just to hear what their sobriety is like and their different viewpoints. You in Florida or whatever community you're in, you sort of get all the same little cliches that go around. Everybody sort of has the same brand of sobriety. So it's really cool to see other countries, what their brand of sobriety is. And it's just a different iteration of what we say, but it's a new way of thinking.
That is so cool, because like I used to travel a lot for work and I would try to hit AA meetings around, and I did appreciate that you got a little bit of that taste, but like there may also be some, right? We may never have times like this ever again.
Exactly.
In our lifetime. And it's like, that's kind of crazy to think like this is like, if there's, say 100,000 people that are in rooms today across the world, in 8 months, in a year, in 2 years, there may only be 4,000. Like this is an awesome opportunity to be able to get that type of sobriety and access to sobriety in other areas of the world. I'm glad you said that, dude. I'm gonna go to Australia.
You should.
Because I can start making friends now.
Yeah.
When this whole thing is said and done, for me to get on the other end of it, and then I'll have friends.
Maybe this is like there you go. Maybe this
is like, I got to get this guy as a client. He is just that's crazy. This kid needs help.
And the other thing is, what's interesting is, like if you're looking for someone to share, if you're looking for someone to, I'm saying that because under the cold turkey umbrella, I've been looking for more guests, and the response has been so positive. Like everyone, I'm starting my own, or I want to be like so. I've had extremely positive and interesting responses from people from all kinds of origins. And I mean by that, sometimes it doesn't necessarily has to be like a drug or an alcohol problem. Like I love someone flipping their life around from whatever perspective they did. So someone reached me, and there's 2 doctors that are working an intervention with people that has like either alcohol or drug problems, and then I've got like the other side of the coin of like the medical system. How do they react to people that have problems that that comes to their office, and we do have our own perspective or our own ideas, preconceived ideas about, you know, like what we think of these people, and that tries to, because I've been there, and I've, you know, like they prescribe me shit that would have made my case worse, you know, like so. So I'm interested in sitting down with these people, and interested in and so it's great occasion to, especially if someone is looking for someone to share a dues meeting, you know, like it would be just awesome for
It's
us
it's
to
great
invite
timing
those
for that.
people
I
in
mean,
Australia. Yeah.
I feel, you know, I don't know how many other people in my TV community are going to watch this podcast, but you know, like for us in television, right? Like this has opened the door for us to start we have access to a lot of celebrities that are sitting at home, not doing anything, not working. So we're now in a position, you know, I work primarily in reality television. So we're in a position now where we're like, who can we get? What can we develop around them? Who, you know, who's going to want to be working? You know, what type of a project can we do through this? And it's like the access right now, you know what people are doing. They're at home on Netflix, and they're you know, like you can get a
Listening to
meeting.
Tiger King.
I don't know who it was.
They're listening to Tiger
Oh,
King.
Dude, I can't even get into that. But there was, even with this, when we were trying to schedule this, I was a little bit of the jerk that was like, what do you mean you can't get it done until, like, let's do it right now. Y'all ain't doing shit. You know, like we are the access. And I think, you know, what we've talked a lot about the pros, the cons, the good, the bad, the changes, the things that stay the same. But I think where it all comes down to is it, and if you're still listening to this or watching this, thank you, wherever you guys are at. But like, if you want to stay sober, there's 100% ways to do it, and it'll be successful. If you don't, then you won't. And it's still as much as it was today, or 6 months ago, or 6 years ago, or 60 years ago. If you want it, you'll make it happen, and you'll find a way, and there's resources to help you. If you don't, and you want to play with fire, then go play with fire. But like, it is a personal responsibility, and it's a personal decision. It's not the virus's fault. It's not the government's fault. It's not anything else. Do you want this shit? And I know that I need it. And so I stick close to the people that I know that are going to help me get fed and help me stay sober.
Well said, man. You know, I'm sitting here thinking that I sort of like daydreaming. And by the way, I do have to go soon, because if I don't eat, I might pass out. Just so you guys don't. So if I do fall off the screen, just call 911, please.
I would say that makes good TV. So, but yeah. I won't make you.
Not 911, man. We'll just Grubhub you something.
Yeah, Phil, if you want good reality TV, just let me stay on here like 10 more minutes. So I am thinking about this, and yeah, we did talk a lot about the pros and cons of this whole situation. But what if once we adjust to this as a culture, that this becomes the new way that people get sober? And this could give access to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who are struggling with this disease. This could give them access to recovery. Now, there's all these things that are popping up online, that this may be the thing that has to happen to get a larger percentage of people clean and sober. This could be a positive for our culture. We don't know.
Yeah. You got a great point, and to, you know, I kind of, to finish this off, you know, because I don't want you to pass out, Blake. The one thing that we want is, you know, like making sure that well, first of all, I want to thank you all for attending. You know, like for me, you know, like your participation was crucial. I wanted to make this a discussion. It does for me. I've already had feedback from my French episode. Someone told me how good it was, just to see that everyone was kind of going through the same pains and the same shit, and you know, like they behave in different ways, but you know, like it's kind of the same stress, and we could relate to it. On top of that, I would really love to touch point again in a few weeks, just to see how we're doing. You know, like, so, you know, like, it would be interesting to see, you know, like how this shit progresses, and you know, like in terms of both the clients you got, and you know, like kind of the spirit of it all. You know, because we're pretty much in good spirit right now, which is interesting. You know, like we could have been in a situation where some of us would be more down or whatever. And you know, like for me, it's great to see that you're all doing well. The last thing is, Blake,
we'll make you cry next time.
Work on this, Phil. one thing for sure is that, Blake, I think you bring a great point about this. You know, like it is a great occasion for everyone to connect. You know, like one of the reasons why I want to do guys together, everyone, is that we come from 4 different regions being impacted by the same shits, which is unique in anyone's lifetime. You know, like we won't see that again. Both the conjuncture of the technology that allow us to communicate through this, and the situation itself. You know, like it's unique. You know, so. That being said, you know, like I think it is important to actually reach out instead of reaching in. You know, like right now, I think it's like I told my wife before going downstairs. You know, like I said, I feel like I need to do this. I feel like it's not about publicity or whatever. I feel like I need to put messages out there saying that we're going to be okay. You know, like it's fine. You know, like whatever you are and however wherever you come from, you know, like everything's going to be fine. You know, like so. So again, thanks for your time. It was great. Paul, I mean, you know, like I know that we had some audio challenges, but that being said, you know, like it was great having you. You're gonna be a soul on a future episode for sure. We're gonna have a one discussion. I want to discover who you are and where from, and you know, like what's your past story, Phil. You know, like wish you the best. I think it's great. There must be great opportunity right now to brainstorm around, you know, like your field of work, which the creativity process must be just phenomenal and fascinating. And, you know, like, and thanks again for being there. You know, like I you know, like always a blast having you on. And Blake, same.
Thank you for having me.
It was a great time. And, you know, like, you guys have responded like almost immediately to my call out, and I'm thankful for that. Thank you, guys.
We're thaintful for having us.
It's because you include those shirtless photos of you in the emails. So I gotta get back to you quickly.
All right.
He's only shirtless in the photos he sends to you. I get different emails, I guess.
Oh man,
different chain.
See, that's what happens, bro. You have too many millennial friends. Nobody takes shit seriously. That's what happens.
You're going to find a way to make me cry. I didn't expect that route, though.
By the way, Alex, I'm sorry I was in that one Zoom meeting with no shirt on. I apologize. I won't do it again.
All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks.
Right. Thanks, guys. Take care,
guys.
Bye.